Man, we really thought 2020 was just going to be like the year of Pedro Pascal, right? Pedro Pascal doing stuff. And it's not his fault. It's not his fault. Wonder Woman 1984. So, in the much anticipated sequel to 2017's Wonder Woman by Patty Jenkins, we have Wonder Woman 1984, which is a movie that just takes place in 1984 for no real reason. It's not like the setting of 1984 changes things in any significant way. It doesn't influence the design of anything, it doesn't influence the soundtrack, it doesn't influence anybody's wardrobes or anything like that. It's just set in 1984. But it opens with a 10-minute flashback sequence to these Olympics that Diana participated in. And she cheated and she was about to win, but then her teacher was like, no, because if you cheat, you never prosper. Which is a lesson that, in a manner of speaking, comes back up in the movie, but doesn't really apply to Diana. And I'll get to that eventually. And then you have a sequence where these guys are robbing a store in a mall. They steal this rock, and it's like, this rock. So they give it to Kristen Wiig, who plays Barbara Minerva, which we'll talk about her in just a second. And it turns out that the stone is a wish stone, and if you make a wish while holding it, your wish comes true, but it's like a monkey's paw, and it takes something in return. So Diana silently, accidentally wishes for Steve Trevor to come back and ends up forsaking her powers. When Maxwell Lord, a guy who I guess somehow knew about the stone, gets it, absorbs it, and becomes the Wish Stone, and starts using the powers of the Wish Stone to gain political power, basically. Well, truly power absolute. He goes from being an oil tycoon to having launch codes over the course of the movie, so that's kind of weird. Now let's address the elephant in the room. They definitely, at least from a design perspective, had President Donald Trump in mind when they came up with Maxwell Lord for this movie. You know, he's a crooked businessman and he's blonde for some reason, even though the character in the context of the film and the actor who plays him is Hispanic. So I'm not quite sure why they would have done that, apart from trying to make some sort of statement. The other elephant in the room, Cheetah, which is what Minerva ends up becoming. See, they took this approach with Barbara that they've taken with multiple superhero movies in the past. This weird, like, frumpy character with glasses that falls all over the main character and then ends up turning evil because they took their glasses off and became more attractive or something like that. You have Electro in Amazing Spider-Man 2. You have Killian in Iron Man 3. You have the Riddler in Batman Forever. There's Catwoman in Batman Returns. It's just like, there's more examples, I just can't think of them. It's a very oddly specific trope that I'm tired of seeing. I'm also tired of seeing movies pretend that if you have your hair up and you're wearing glasses, you're ugly. That's so stupid. I don't get why movies have been doing that for decades and they just won't stop. They won't stop. But Kristen Wiig and Pedro Pascal are both very talented actors, but they were given such weak material to work with. Here's something that I hated about the way that they did Cheetah in this movie. Before she gets, because she wishes to be like Diana, which of course gives her powers that turn her into a cat for some reason. She gets a second wish. There's a rule established pretty early in the movie that the Wish Stone can only grant you one wish, but I guess the Wish Stone can grant you a wish, and then after Max becomes the Wish Stone, he can grant you a wish. And as he's granting wishes, his health starts deteriorating, and I'm like, that's cool. Also, Steve Trevor comes back in a random guy's body, and he sleeps with Diana, but he's in a different guy's body. So the guy who usually pilots that body is, like, I guess in a coma or something like that. So Diana takes advantage of basically an unconscious man, and sleeps with him. That is one of the least heroic things I've ever seen a DC hero do, and this is the DCEU we're talking about. Back on topic though, Barbara works at the Smithsonian among other people with PhDs, and everybody's like, oh, she's too lame to talk to. And it's like she's being picked on in high school or something like that. And I'm just like, this movie has a lot of logical inconsistencies, but after Diana and Barbara meet, they go out to have dinner, and Barbara is walking home and she is assaulted by this man. And then later on in the movie, she gets her powers and she is assaulted again, and she starts beating the guy up. But it plays this like ominous music, and it frames it like it's her turning into a villain. And I'm like, if defending yourself against somebody who's harassing and assaulting you is a bad thing to do, I don't really know what type of message this movie's trying to preach. I'm sorry. That's really weird and really cringy, and they should not have taken that approach whatsoever. That was terrible. This movie also has really bad humor, which wouldn't typically be an issue that would be noteworthy if it weren't for the fact that there were like 9 different memorable failed attempts at a joke. But one of the most frustrating things in this movie is Diana herself, because she's a historian, right? She's been alive for over 1,000 years, and you would think that she knows these sorts of things, because there's a certain point in the movie where they have to go to Egypt to find out, like, well, to stop Max. They end up finding out about this, like the history of the Wish Stone and how it brought down all these civilizations and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, Diana, seems like the type of thing you would know because you were probably alive when it happened. And that's not to say that like she would handily have access to this information, but it's not exactly like a fable. This is real. Like, this is an actual stone that has powers that she can find. And we don't know how Maxwell found out about the stone. We don't know how this random shop in this random mall in Washington, D.C. got the stone in the first place. None of that stuff is important to the story. It just pops up in the movie, and it's the MacGuffin. But then Max becomes the MacGuffin. And there's a thing with Max that's really, really annoying, and we'll get there when we get to the end of the movie. But right now, I want to talk about the lasso of truth. The lasso is the most bullshit thing in this entire movie, and I know the lasso is magic. I know it was made by the gods and stuff like that, but it just really just does whatever is necessary in this movie. She does some weird things with the lasso, and that's all I'm going to say about that. There's an inconsistency at the end with the lasso that I'll get to when I talk about Max again. But one thing that I thought was specifically stupid in this movie is, earlier I mentioned that they had to go to Egypt to try to stop Max. They steal a plane, and Diana turns the plane invisible because Wonder Woman has an invisible plane in the comics, or at least she did. I doubt she still has it ever since DC started being more serious. But she turns it invisible because Zeus had magic that turned Themyscira invisible, and so she figured that by default she should also have a similar ability, and she turns the plane invisible. Do you have any idea the types of implications that has? If being the child of Zeus, or having Zeus's abilities, gives you the ability to turn things invisible, then that means Captain Marvel should be able to do it in the next Shazam movie. That means Black Adam should be able to do it. That means Hercules should be able to do it. Like, I don't understand. And also there's this like subplot with this armor that the Amazonians forged that was supposed to be so strong that no man could destroy it, and they gave it to this one warrior, and she went out with it, and she was never found, but the armor was. I guess she took it off somewhere, and Diana kept it and decided that she needed it for some reason to fight Cheetah. It didn't offer her any extra protection. In fact, it was more vulnerable than her normal outfit would have been. It's interesting, though, that no man was able to destroy the armor, but this Cheetah woman can just... Also, the CGI on Cheetah was horrendous. The CGI in the movie throughout is really bad, but especially on her. And they had the fight take place at night, which is extra funny because of how bad it is. Another thing is that there are no consequences for the bad guys in this movie, which is kind of insulting. They didn't have to die. Maxwell Lord was not a kill type of villain in this movie. He just didn't pose that type of physical threat. But Cheetah actively tried to kill a lot of people and was basically a domestic terrorist, and no action was taken against her whatsoever. She got knocked out and left there, and she lost her powers when Max renounced his wish to give up his powers. So, the element of renouncing your wish. Here we come up to another thing that this movie rips off. In the second movie, the hero is fine with giving up their powers for love. Spider-Man 2 did it, and Superman 2 did it, and now Wonder Woman 2 is doing it. Funnily enough, in Spider-Man 3 and Superman 3, the main character was taken over by some sort of evil force. So I'm sure that will happen in the next Wonder Woman movie. The longer Steve stays alive, the weaker Diana is getting over the course of the movie. And she's just fine with that. She's fine with losing her powers, even though there has been nothing shown with her character to this point that makes it seem like that's something that she would be okay with. We have never seen anything to lead us to believe that she would make such a selfish decision. But she's just doing it because her character development takes place after these movies, I guess. And that's another thing with setting them in the past. You have to find some way to justify the events of the movie never coming up in conversation, which is a lot harder when the movie ends up on a scale where world-ending levels of wishes are being made, and then once Max renounces his wish, I guess all the active wishes get canceled, or maybe Diana somehow convinced the entire world to renounce their wishes. Because here's what happened, right? Max was standing in this like tube of energy, and Diana tried to lasso him and couldn't. The lasso was repelled. But then the lasso snuck onto his ankle, and she started talking to everybody that Max was broadcasting to, which was pretty much the entire world, and appealed to all of their better natures, and everyone renounced their wishes. I don't know. In the first Wonder Woman movie, Steve made it pretty clear that the lasso of truth hurts because it's compelling you to tell the truth. That didn't work on Aquaman in Justice League or Maxwell Lord in this movie. You gotta love narrative and logical inconsistencies. This movie has them in stows. What else happened in this movie that really annoyed me? Steve never got to make a wish. Okay, when Diana renounced her wish, right, she was injured because she was weak. She instantly healed and then just started flying because Steve explained what it feels like to fly a plane, to pilot an aircraft. And Diana applied it to her real life and just started flying. I'm not upset that she started flying because she can fly. I've known that for a while, which is why I questioned why she ever had a jet. But she doesn't fly in the movies after this, which is weird, you know? It's just kind of weird. She has, in the Justice League, she has to throw that suitcase bomb to make sure it doesn't hurt anybody. Why doesn't she just tuck it in and start flying? Because that way, even if it does, you know, still explode before she can get it a safe distance away, she can absorb a pretty good amount of that explosion. With her bracelets, she doesn't really do the bracelet thing in this movie either. So she puts on the armor, which I thought, because I knew she was going to renounce the wish, and I knew that she wears the armor when she fights Cheetah. So I figured it would take her a while to get back to her, you know, physical peak. Nope. I thought that was what she needed the armor for, but she needed the armor so that they could sell new toys where she was wearing a different set of armor. And she does this weird thing when she's flying. She, like, lassos the air and pulls herself forward, and I'm just like... At a certain point, I just stopped understanding what I was seeing. It took me a day and some change to watch this movie, because every once in a while, something so questionable would happen that I just had to take a break. I legitimately have not seen a superhero movie this bad in quite a while. But here's the funny thing. I still like the third act of this movie more than I like the third act of the first Wonder Woman movie. I know I haven't reviewed any of the DCEU movies. If you want me to, I can. I've only done Aquaman and Shazam up to this point. But goodness gracious. There's so much of this movie falling on its face, trying to put style over substance, and it just doesn't work. Not at all. And what you end up with is a very boring movie where nothing really happens. It's like It's like Fantastic Beasts: Crimes of Grindelwald. When I reviewed that, I was like, so much happens and nothing happens at the same time. And the same thing is true here. Warner has that ability where a million things can happen in a movie, but nothing happens. And it's just like, I wasted my time. And that's what this movie is. It's a waste of time. I'm not even going to rate it because it's a waste of time. You can tell from this review that I didn't like it, so what's the point of rating it? I'm not going to do all that extra editing work. It's a bad movie. So Wonder Woman 1984, have you seen it? What do you think about whatever it is, whatever you think, comment below and educate me as always. For more videos from me, go ahead and click somewhere on the screen and whatever, and I'll see you next time. If I see one comment about me not liking this movie because there's a woman, I'm going to flip out. I'm going to make a whole video responding to just you. So don't do it. You will get clowned. See you soon.